welcome to new student orientation for respiratory therapy. Make sure you pay attention to this video as you will need to answer a few questions. Orientation attendance. There will be 3 quiz questions throughout this video. In order to receive credit for attending, you will need to answer these questions correctly and email your answers to saslc@independence.edu. Please make sure to include your first and last name. You can pause the video to answer these quiz questions to give yourself time to answer them. Documentation. The school and the hospital will need some additional forms before you can start your clinical rotation. I've listed a few of these forms here. The first one is the student participation form, and it looks like this. Make sure you take this form with you when you go into the hospital for your interview because they will need to fill out some of the information and sign it. Other forms are the policies and procedures form, medical release form, and preclinical student requirement form. In addition to these, the hospital may have their own forms that they require as well. All of this paperwork must be turned in by Friday of week 3 of your class, or you will be dropped from school. That brings us to quiz question number 1. Do you need to take the student participation form with you when you have your interview at the hospital? True or false? If you need to pause the video to answer this question, please go ahead and do so at this time. Let's go ahead and take a look at your classes. After you enter in your username and password, you will be taken to the welcome page. From the welcome page, you can select the course that you would like to log into. For most of you, you will have 2 classes. In addition, for most of you, your first 2 classes will be Psychology of Motivation, or CSS 101, and Introduction to Respiratory Therapy, or RES 101. If you don't see 2 classes, or the classes aren't these 2 classes, don't be alarmed. Let's go ahead and log into your Introduction to Respiratory Therapy class now. As you can see on the left-hand side, you have weeks 1 through 4. In order to complete the week you are working on, you'll click on it. You will need to complete the homework that is assigned. In addition, you will also notice that there are some chapter activities in here as well. These activities will help you with your unit exam and your final exam. Once you have opened up the chapter activities, you will notice that they are broken down into sections, like 1.1 definitions, 1.2 history of respiratory medicine and science. The book is also broken down into the same sections, so 1.1 is definitions, 1.2 is history of respiratory medicine and science, and so on. To access the book for this course, you'll just scroll down on the left past week 4 and past instructors' resources. You can see where it says Egan's Fundamentals of Respiratory Care. When you click on the book, you will notice that it says the ebook is only intended for Independence University students. Just go ahead and scroll down on the left and select whatever chapter that you're working on. Egan's workbook will work in the exact same way. Now, in order to find the answers to Egan's workbook, we need to go back to the welcome page. The easiest way to do that is clicking on the Exit Course button at the bottom left of your screen. We want to go into the General Program Information course, also known as the GPI, which brings us to our second quiz question. GPI stands for what? If you need to pause the video to answer this question, please go ahead and do so now. Inside this course, you will find a lot of different information. You will notice right down here underneath the book, you'll see where it says Egan's Workbook Keys, or in other words, the answers. Go ahead and open it up and select the chapter you are working on. Now I want to draw your attention up here to the Preclinical Requirements. Under this section, you will find the Preclinical Requirement forms. You have 60 days from the first day of class to get this paperwork turned in. This brings us to our third quiz question. How many days do you have to turn in your preclinical paperwork? A, 30, B, 60, C, 90. If you need to pause the video to answer this question, please go ahead and do so. Let's go ahead and go through your preclinical requirements. You are required to have a physical exam by a licensed physician, a CPR card, drug screen, liability insurance, and certain immunizations done within 60 days of starting class. I know for a lot of you, you have completed the immunizations already. And if that is the case, you can send in the documentation and our clinical program coordinator will verify if it is one that we can accept. For your physical exam, the school does provide you with a form that you can take to your doctor to ensure that everything is being done. You can access this form by going to the Preclinical Requirements form here. As you can see, there is a couple different sections on this form, including one for immunizations. Okay, now let's go ahead and go back to the GPI course and go to the liability insurance. For the liability insurance, you will need to have at least a $1 million policy. If you look right here, we have provided you with two different insurance companies and their phone numbers. You are more than welcome to use any insurance company. They have just listed these two companies because they have found their rates to be the lowest. Next, let's go over your immunizations. The TB test needs to be done within the last year to be accepted. The tetanus needs to have been done within the last 10 years to be accepted. And for measles, mumps, and rubella, also known as MMR, and the chickenpox, you will need to have documentation of at least 2 doses completed. For your CPR card, it has to be done by the American Heart Association, and it has to be signed on the back. Next is your drug screen. Now, most places only do an 8-panel drug screen, and we do require a 10-panel. So please make sure that you let them know that a 10-panel drug screen is required. Then, of course, if the hospital requires any other clinical forms, we will let you know. When you turn these documents in, they will be listed inside of your gradebook, right up here. Now, once the documents have been cleared and noted, it will show a score of 100 out of 100. There is a lot of other information that you will need inside this GPI course, so you will be able to access it throughout your whole program. That is actually the end of the orientation, so thank you for joining us. Once again, here is a list of the quiz questions. Don't forget to email your answers to saslc@independence.edu and making sure to include your first and your last name.